Let the game begin. Welcome to Listen to Reality. We had 6 people emulate a reality competition show, and now it's finally time to hear what happened, purely from their perspective. Each of them will get one episode to explain their game and their decisions without knowing whether they won. So without any further ado, let's get to it. Recording. And today we have Ray. Hello, Ray. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well. I'm excited to finally talk about this game.
Good, good. All right. So, just to start it out, what's your experience with orgs?
So I still think I'm relatively new to orgs. I played my first one ever like the last week of October 2022, so not that long ago. Since then, I've sort of played in three, minus this one. And I placed eighth in one of them, I placed fourth in another, and then I don't know how I've done in this one. So I guess we'll see. But I'm a relative newcomer and only really experienced survivor for the most part. Played a little bit of Big Brother. It was horrible. I forgot it even happened. So that is sort of my org experience up to this point.
Cool. Yeah. So, for this game, obviously you didn't know much about the game going into it. I like asked you to do this project randomly, and you agreed. And so going into, and then I think like an hour before the game started, I told everyone the general concept. So going into the game, did you have any sort of strategy?
No, I think I really approached it with the same strategy I've kind of approached all of my orgs, which is just to be very social. I know that's where my skills lie. I'm definitely more of a social player than I am strategic. So yeah, definitely going into it, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go in. I know it's a small group of people. I knew there was only going to be six of us. So going in, I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna try my best to connect with these five people to build some relationships to start with. And especially because we didn't know that much about how the game was going to work, I just wanted to be very open to working with people and having good relationships and seeing how the game went before putting down any sort of strategic ideas.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so then going into the game, was there anyone you got along with well right away?
Yeah, I think I got along with Sloth, Kane, and Patrick really well right off the bat. I'd say more so Sloth and Kane. I really did like Patrick right away, but I just don't think we were talking quite as much as the other two. So Kane, I definitely felt like I connected with probably the best right off the bat. We went right into it with very sort of personal conversations. And it wasn't so much focused on the game, whereas Sloth, pretty quickly off the bat, we had sort of exchanged a few messages back and forth. And he pretty quickly was just like, oh, I hate small talk, but it's a short game, so I just really want to establish some trust with somebody. So, I'll trust you, and I mean, we'll come back to this.
Hmm.
But right off the bat, he was like, let's be allies. So I was like, okay, sounds good. So yeah, I'd say those two were probably my best first impressions.
Okay. And then on the other end of it, was there anyone you really didn't get along with right away?
I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't get along with people, but I mean, definitely Tim and Noah. I just didn't talk to them very much. I really tried.
Hmm.
Um, and typically when I play orgs, like I said, I am a social player,
Hmm.
and I find it very hard to talk to a specific type of person who I've come across in every org I've ever played, who's the kind of person where you'll ask them something and they answer it and then they have nothing further to say. There's no follow-up comments. Like you'll be like, "Where are
Hmm.
you from?" And they say, "Toronto." And it's like, okay, what am I supposed to say to that? Right?
Hmm.
Like, ask me where I'm from, or tell me if you've lived there your whole life, or tell me where you're from originally. Or so I felt like with both of them, it, at least from my perspective, felt like I was talking to a wall a little bit. So yeah, I don't think we really connected off the bat, and I don't think we really connected later either. Um, that was sort of the first day.
Yeah, all right. Well, with that out of the way, let's talk about each of the rounds, what you did, and how you think it went. So, we're gonna start with round one. Just a reminder that
Mhm.
was the greed challenge. You could take up to 11 points. Whoever took the most would get nothing, and whoever took the least would get their score doubled. So, what did you do for that round?
So right when that challenge started, right when the game started, and right away in the what was it called, the main chat, the group chat, whatever it
Something
was,
like
the
that.
main chat, something like that. Everyone was like, let's all just take 1 point and tie. Let's, kumbaya and this and that kind of thing. And so I didn't really want to do that.
Hmm.
Everyone was like, let's just do it. And I know that you had said that our points wouldn't be revealed to the public, which I knew like in my head. So I was kind of thinking about it. And I even had said something to Sloth about it because at that point he was my number one. And so the two of us were like, do we really just want to take one? And then I think somebody must have asked you because then you came in and said, like, just remember, the points are private. So then I think that kind of sent people on more of a tailspin, like, oh, so I could do something and get away with it. Then I think everyone was a little bit afraid that someone would check their points after the first round. So in the end, I mean, I went back and forth with Sloth and uh, we just decided, well, I decided I was going to take 1 point, and I was told by Sloth and Kane and Patrick that they also took 1 point. Who knows if they did, but that is what I was told. So I felt like I was just going along with the group, whether or not that actually happened. That was the logic behind that choice.
All right, interesting. Okay. And then, so the next round was get the word across, which each player you had a secret phrase and you needed to say it to everyone else in DMs, and you also had one guess at everyone else's phrase, and you could get up to 15 points if you got everything perfect. So, what was your strategy there? What did you do for round two?
Right. So you said in the game that you stole this one from Echo,
Mm-hmm.
and so the listeners know you and I played together in Echo.
Mm-hmm.
So I had played this game before, this challenge. And every single person in Echo did was we all basically created a list of anywhere, I'd say between 10 and 50. I think you were the one that did 50
Yeah.
things. Um, we created a list of anywhere between 10 and 50 phrases and basically just, sorry, don't ignore that, and just sent them to each other like in 50 separate messages. And we're just like, okay, here you go, guess. Um, so at first, obviously, that's where my mind went like, okay, I'll bury the phrase, whatever. And then pretty much right away, I think it was Kane who messaged me and said, do you just want to exchange phrases with each other? I've heard that there's this potential strategy going around, which is exactly what we did in Echo. And I guess that was coming from Tim, I believe. And so he was like, I don't really want to do that. Should we just exchange? And so I didn't really want to. And I went to him and I said, look, I reread the rules. And it says in here that we get a point if we guess each other's phrases, but we also get a point if the other person doesn't guess our phrase. So why don't we just agree not to guess each other's phrases? And he pushed back. And I was like, okay, this man really wants my phrase. So I kind of just said, like, okay, let me think about it. I got some stuff to do. I'll come back to you, whatever. So that happened. And then, pretty much at the same time all that was happening, Patrick also messaged me basically word for word saying what Kane had. So I was like, okay, these guys are definitely talking. Like these guys are definitely working together a little bit. So I kind of played it off the same way. I tried to explain to him the same thing I had Kane. He pushed back just like Kane did. I basically excused myself. And that was fine. So at that point, I wanted to talk to Sloth because we had been working together. And I just said, these two have said this. And he said, oh, yeah, they messaged me right away as well. So I knew obviously they were going around to everybody. And so Sloth and I kind of went back and forth. And I just said, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? And we both just sort of decided we were going to leave it for the night because we had 24 hours for all the challenges and we'd come back together in the morning. But the intention was to not give our phrases. So I kind of spent the night sitting on it and thinking about it. And then I just thought, you know, how am I going to justify not giving it to them? I mean, I could just say, like, I don't want to give you my phrase, guess it, here's a list. But does that kind of ruin any potential trust going forward? Does that, reflect poorly on me? Are they not going to want to work with me or talk to me? What if, Tim and Noah give them their phrases? Is that going to put me in a worse position? And so I guess I kind of felt like I'd been backed into a corner. So I just went to Sloth and I explained that. And I just said, I don't know. I just kind of feel like we should give them the phrases. And he came back to me, and again, he really pushed back. He said, I don't really want to. And so I just said to him, I said, I get that. You don't have to, but I just feel like it's probably the best thing to do. So I'm just going to do it. I sent the two of them my phrases. They sent theirs back. And then Sloth came back to me and he said, okay, I'm going to do it too. I guess he thought about it a little bit more. That was great. So I felt like everything was pretty good. The four of us had all exchanged phrases amongst each other. Tim and Noah, in the meantime, had sent us lists. Oh my God, Tim's was ridiculous. I think Tim had 100 phrases and Noah had like, I don't know, I think like 20 or 25 or something. So I made my own list of phrases to send to them. I think I sent 23. So I sent those over to them. And then Kane made a group chat amongst the four of us that shared phrases called the gatekeepers, because which we weren't the gatekeepers. Technically, Tim and Noah would have been the gatekeepers because they were the ones gatekeeping their phrases. So I never really understood the name.
Hmm.
um, but anyways, so the four of us kind of chatted and we just said, they're gonna get more points than us because they have these lists. And Patrick told them his phrase for whatever reason. He said he just wanted to be transparent, but I don't know, it didn't really make any sense when they weren't giving it back to him. So all just like, okay, they're gonna get some points. So next round, the four of us will link up and we're basically going to just freeze them out and we're going to try to get each other as many points as we can and get them the least amount possible. So that was kind of the discussion we had. And then it was big. We created a Word document or an Excel document. And we compared our phrases and it was like it was crazy the amount of criteria we had for it. I have it in front of me actually. So our four phrases all either started with I or the. So we took out any phrases that didn't start with that,
Hmm.
which is funny because I think Tim later told me his did not start with I or the. He told me what it was later on. So it didn't even work, right? But
Hmm.
this is like how we're thinking. We took that out. None of our sentences had any punctuation aside from periods. So we took out anything with a comma or a contraction. The sentences didn't utilize any quote unquote big words. So anything that you would have to look at in a dictionary, we took out. Um, Anything that was kind of more easily worked into conversation, we left or we took out. And because all of our phrases were like batshit, I can't even remember what mine was. It was something like the earth is like a circle with a magnet in it or
Yep.
something. So they weren't really things we thought could easily be dropped into conversation. So we took out all of those and we kind of narrowed it down and we took a guess. I don't think either of them were right.
Hmm.
But it felt good just to be working in an alliance and with the team. So
Yeah.
that was great. So then that was the end of that challenge.
Hmm.
And then I think you know what's coming next, but I'll
Yeah.
leave it there.
So yeah, so round three, that was like the prisoner's dilemma, split or steal. You had to decide whether you would split points or steal points from each other player in the game. And I'm not sure, was the Noah blow up before or after, or was it? I don't know. It was sometime during that round. Anyways, tell me
It
about
was
round three.
around. So basically, what happened is as it was soon after you announced the challenge. So you announced the challenge, and the four of us in our gatekeepers chat immediately everyone was like, okay, let's just all split amongst each other and steal from them. We were under the impression that Noah and Tim were definitely just going to steal from everybody. So it didn't matter if we split or whatever, we were going to lose the points regardless. So we might as well get them a nice solid 0. So that was pretty much the extent of the discussion. It was very quick, very easy. So I'd say it was probably a couple of hours later. I feel like this all happened at like 4 or 5 p.m. And then maybe it was like 7. Noah came into the main chat and he posted this, I don't know, manifesto. He posted this rant that essentially was like, I know about the group chat, the gatekeepers chat, um, and I hate that you guys are playing the game this way. I hate that we're being excluded. I hate this. I hate that. And basically just like had a little bit of a meltdown about the fact that people were having alliances in a social game. Which was just very funny to me because after that, I think I went back into our messages and I wanted to see how many messages we'd sent back and forth, minus the many phrases we sent each other, and it was like 7. It was nothing.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, how? Yeah, I was like, I don't know how he can be mad at me. Like, what did you think I was doing this whole time? So, so anyway, so you kind of went off, and basically said someone in your alliance talking, and I can't remember what exactly he said, but he said something that very directly implied that it was not Patrick or Kane. So at that point, it's like obviously me or Sloth, and I knew it wasn't me. So, but it was funny because everyone already knew. I didn't. See, I was out of the loop on this
Oh.
one, but I think Kane was like, we already know it's Sloth. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know about that. So yeah, I was totally out of the loop on this one. I admit that. And I played it off like I wasn't, though, of course. I was like, oh yeah, I know. Of course. Um, so it just went on and on, this discussion in the group chat, or the main chat, I should say, and everyone was kind of coming back at Noah. But in the end, I mean, I think it made him look really bad. I just don't think it was the way to handle it because it was interesting that he was getting this outside information and then he just blew it up for some reason. Like, if he was getting this information from Sloth, I still don't really understand the logic as to why he decided to blow up that spot and to expose him when, he was having good things coming his way. He had good intel. So it's kind of weird. So, anyways, he went crazy. And then Sloth basically came to me, Patrick, and Kane. Well, he briefly posted something in the gatekeepers chat and just said, oh, I fucked up, you guys. As soon as I did it, I knew I fucked up. And no one really responded except for Kane, who was like, yeah, you did, or something
Oh my
like that.
gosh.
And then the chat just went silent. So then Patrick and Kane and I made our own group chat, the three of us. And we were basically like, oh, this fucking guy, right? So the three of us were like, okay, we're not gonna strategize right this second, but we're gonna come back together, the three of us, and we'll figure things out. Um, so in the meantime, then Sloth was messaging me, and he was immediately like, "Oh, I mean, I really fucked up. Like, I really wanted to tell you, but it was like as soon as everything happened, Noah didn't react the way I wanted him to." He said that Noah basically reacted like not like, "Oh my God, there's all this game going on that I don't know about. Tell me everything. Let's work together." But he basically reacted exactly how he did in the main chat, which was blowing up and feeling upset. So Sloth basically like, I don't know. Then he was just like so upset, and I was worried about what he was going to do. So I didn't tell anybody. I should have told you, whatever. So I mean, it doesn't benefit me to tear him apart, especially when I know that's what Patrick and Kane were doing. So it's basically like, it's all good. Like, I still trust you, still my number one, blah, 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 blah. So as that was all happening, Kane and I were talking on the side, and Kane's like, he just copy and pasted his entire conversation history with Noah into my inbox or whatever, because I guess Kane was like trying to like emotionally manipulate him, whatever. That's exactly what he said in the chat. He came into our chat and said, "Is anyone else trying to emotionally manipulate him?" Kind of, yes. And anyway, so he came in and he did that. And he said, he sent all three of our phrases, although I think they already had Patrick's, but he said that Sloss sent all of our phrases to Noah. So definitely all of ours were Noah. And then I had asked Sloth, I said, did you send them my phrase? Because we knew that he sent them the other two's. And he was like, no, I would never send yours. But of course, it was in this copy and pasted message. And yes, I know that Kane could have potentially just added it in. Or he could just be saying that because he never actually sent me this conversation. But at that point, I didn't really have a reason to trust Sloth. So I just kind of threw my hat in with the Patrick and Kane alliance. And then the three of us, I mean, I feel like from that point on, I definitely felt the best about Kane and Patrick, and just kind of linked up with them for the rest of it. Um, so that was kind of that one. So then in the end, still everyone in the gatekeepers chat, even like after this big blow up, was like, I'm still planning on splitting with all of you, including Sloth. So yeah, I think I split it between the gatekeepers. I said I was going to, so I did. Pull from the other two. And yeah, that was, I guess, the end of that round. So this all continued into the next round, but we'll get there.
So yeah, round four. That was the ranking round. You ranked everyone first to fifth, and whoever had the best ranking would get the most points, and so on. So, what did you do for round four after all this chaos in round three?
Right. So after all the chaos, definitely my group chat with, which it doesn't have a name. I wish it had a name so I could just refer to it as a name. But my chat with Patrick and Kane really picked up from there, and it stayed pretty active until the end of the season. Definitely kind of the most active chat I had had the whole time. Um, we were just talking about the last round. Patrick checked his points after this round and shared it with us, and I think it was 10. So it sort of indicated that Sloth had probably stolen from him the round before, even though he swore he was gonna share, split, or whatever it was. And so like, okay, he probably stole from me too, because at that point it was very clear who he was and what kind of game he was playing. So yeah, so in the gatekeepers chat during this ranking one, Tim immediately messaged me and Patrick and just said, ignore everything I'm about to say in this chat. And he went into the gatekeepers chat and he just said, we should all rank each other like different ranks, and basically like one person will put Ray first and one person will put Patrick first and one person puts Kane first and so on and so forth. So that we all sort of tie our points together. And then basically it just comes down to whatever Noah and Tim put us, and we'll basically put Noah at the bottom. Of course, there's a lot of hard feelings towards him after the previous round. Not so much from me, because again, I didn't feel like he owed me anything. And I certainly didn't feel like I owed him anything. But I think he definitely felt different with Patrick, because I didn't mention this yet, but Patrick did have previous relationships with everyone except for me. Um, so he knew everyone. I don't know how well or anything like that, but I think that Noah felt some level of, I don't know, loyalty to him out of that, or felt like he was owed something because of that. So he was, I think, quite upset at Patrick, and I think he was quite upset at Kane, and he probably was upset with me too, but like, it's not my problem when we have no relationship. So anyways, so Kane basically put that in the gatekeeper's chat. Everyone agreed, Sloth agreed, whatever. Then he comes over to the chat with just me and Patrick, and he said, okay, we'll do that same method, but just amongst the three of us. And let's decide how we want to rank everyone else. So, even though everyone was really mad at Sloth, and everyone was like, we want to put Sloth fifth, like we're so mad, whatever. Um, we thought, sort of based on the way the points had gone and based on the phrases challenge and everything, we felt that Noah and Tim probably had the most points in the game. So strategically, we wanted to put them lower, preferably Noah. I don't really know why they kind of felt like Noah had more points than Tim because I felt like they were probably pretty much tied, but I think they just were more mad at Noah.
Hmm.
So basically, the decision was made that the three of us would basically like stagger each other. So one person would put someone first, the other one second, and we would all sort of rotate. So we were even in points in that regard. And then we would put Sloth third, Tim fourth, and Noah fifth. And we would all do that. So, at least like if we all put Noah last, then the highest he could get is four kind of thing. So that was kind of the idea. And then I think Kane might have actually flipped Tim and Sloth because then we were a little bit worried that if we all put Sloth third, and then if like Tim and Noah put him second or something, it would pull up his average if they all sunk one of us. So I think he might have flipped them. So that was basically that round. And at this point, honestly, I think from this point on, I talked to Tim a little bit this round because I think he was trying to get himself a little bit higher. He's trying to edge himself, above Noah and Sloth a little bit. And I think that's the last time I DM'd him the entire game was in this round. This is the
Hmm.
last time we talked
Wow.
privately. And don't think, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think that Noah and I ever DM'd again. So, yeah, the game got really weird after that point. The dynamics got weird and the relationships got weird. And we'll talk about it when we get to touchy subjects, but that's
Hmm.
why I feel like the person I said was going to win is probably the one who won. Just because I don't think there was a lot of communication going on amongst a lot of other people. And again, that might just be my perspective. Like maybe I was just the one being left out of conversations, and I definitely, think that's a possibility. Um, but yeah, it was just kind of a weird dynamic at that point. So yeah, essentially with that round, I just split with the two guys and then ranked the other three how we said we were going to rank them.
All right. Cool. Yeah. So then moving on to round five, that was like a reverse greed sort of thing. So you each had 8 points, and you had to give them all away, and whoever was given the most points would get nothing. So what did you do for that round?
Yes. So yes, this one was kind of weird. Just because, I don't know if we're supposed to mention it, but there
No,
was a different challenge
it
at
was
first.
like there were like 2 to 3 different challenges before it, and they were all mathematically nothing. So it was a
Yes.
little bit of chaos around five, but yeah, it ended up as that challenge.
Yes. So yeah, so there was all this sort of back and forth. And like I even talked to Sloth when it was initially supposed to be a different challenge, and I just
Mhm.
said to him, like, so if we all just do this, then we're all going to get the same amount of points. And like he at first didn't get it. And then he was like, oh, wait, you got it. You broke the challenge. I'm like, I don't think I broke the challenge. Like, I think that's just how the challenge was built. At first, I thought this was you just like working on a different level than us. I was like,
Mm.
he's just like wanting us to squirm and make everyone paranoid and try to figure out how to get more points when it's not possible. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like
Oh,
Dan
that
is
would have
in
been
another
good.
world
Yeah.
now. Yeah, like he's on a different plane of thinking at the moment. But then, of course, everything changed. But regardless, Sloth and I had sort of talked at that point, and he just, again, like, I can't trust anything that comes from him. But at that point, he just said to me, like, you're the only one who's talking to me still. And, like, I'll do whatever you want me to do this round and this and that. It's like, okay, we'll see about that. So then, of course, the new challenge came in, and basically right away, Kane said that he split on me and Patrick before he had even really gotten a chance to read through the rules. Because then, very shortly after, he came back and he's like, "Oh, I should have read the rules because now if one of us gets too many points, then we're gonna get zero." So then, he said to me and Patrick, he said, honestly, at this point, I don't really care if I win. So why don't you guys I'm going to give you guys each 4 points and you don't have to give me any points. And why don't the two of you just stack on someone? We'll figure out who, but why don't you put all of your points on someone so we can make sure they bust? So it was kind of weird because I was like, you don't want to win. And we sort of went back and forth. And I said, like, if Patrick and I both give you 2 points, then at least you'll have four. So you'll be tied with us. And then we can still put six each. Like me and Patrick, obviously, Kane had already done his, but me and Patrick can both still put six each on someone else, which is like pretty good. The other, three would all have to team up to really beat that, most likely. And so Kane was like, like, I really don't care. You guys you can put one on me if you want, but like, let's just sabotage someone here rather than trying to make one of us win this one. So we sort of, again, talked about it. We were trying to figure out who do we think has the most points right now. And we kind of landed on Sloth just because we knew that he was higher up in the rankings on our ranking challenge than the other two. So we were like, okay, we're going to try to best Sloth. And I should say, like, while I was having these conversations with these guys, I did really like them. We had good talks and all that, but I didn't necessarily 100% trust anyone in this game. I was definitely aware of Patrick's other relationships, especially because we knew that he did have connections prior to the game. But he was also just a very likable person. So I was very aware, like, okay, like Patrick's got this chat with us. But who else is he talking to? So, but at that point, I was all in with these guys. I didn't really have any other recourse because I didn't really have a relationship with Tim or Noah. And of course, I had one with Sloth, but I can't trust him at all. So I was kind of just like, all right, like, I guess this is my alliance. If it needs to be, this is all I've got. So the three of us basically came to the decision that Patrick and I would each put 7 on Sloth, 1 on Kane, just so we got a couple of points, and then Kane would split on the both of us. That was fine. So then the next day, I just sent Sloth like a cursory message because, of course, I played it up like, oh, you're still my ally, whatever. And I just said, do you have any ideas for this challenge? And that's when he sort of said to me, like, oh, no one's talking to me. So yeah, like, I'll do whatever. What do you think? And I just said, do we just want to like give each other a few points or do we want to stack on someone? Like, I was very much, I didn't want to tell him what to do. Like, I wanted him to say what he wanted me to do. Because I think I'd already played my points and I also knew I wasn't going along with whatever his plan was because I stacked on him. So I just wanted him to like take control and just tell me what it was. So then he told me, he said, well, Tim is really worried that you're gonna win because he thinks you're in the lead point wise, which like I was like, I don't think so. Like I really didn't ever feel like I had control of this game. I'm sure we'll talk about sort of overall feelings at the end of this, but I never really felt like I was in the lead. I never really felt like I was in a winner's position. I certainly don't feel like I won. But whatever Sloth was like, yeah, Tim thinks you're gonna win, so he basically wants everyone to stack on you. So he says he's gonna stack on you. He told me to stack on you, and Patrick is also gonna stack on you. And so I mean, I wasn't surprised to hear that Tim was gonna stack on me. It was interesting that Sloth told me, and still I wonder to this day, like, did Tim really tell him that, or was he just trying to instigate another blow up? Which, if he was, like, he's coming to the wrong person because I'm not like that. um, but yeah, so I wasn't really sure, but I did find it interesting that he said that Patrick was going to. And yeah, like, do I think there's a possibility Patrick did in that challenge? Sure. But I also think there's an equally good possibility that Sloth just kind of obviously figured out that the three of us had our own thing going on because at this point the gatekeeper's chat had not been touched. And naturally, if I was sort of already working with those two, why would I not continue working with them, just cutting Sloth out when he was one that betrayed the group? So I think definitely there could have been a little bit of play with Sloth, trying to put a wedge between us. But yeah, I think definitely Patrick could have seen that I was a threat to him, just because if we did feel like we had stopped him and Noah from getting some points the last couple rounds, then certainly it would be me or Kane who was the biggest threat to him point wise at that point. Yeah, so I guess I don't really know in the end, did he really stack on Sloth or did he stack on me? Um, but at that point, I just held strong with the group because I felt like that was the best option for me. I told Sloth basically that I think Sloth was like, let's stack on Kane. So I think he might have stacked on Kane. And I told him I was going to do the same thing, which I didn't. Um, but yeah, I think that was the conclusion to the end of that round.
All right. So, going into round six, first of all, that was when you decided to use your ask, which I believe you found
Yes.
out you had 25 points at the time, I want to say. Yeah.
Yes.
And then round six itself, that was touchy subjects with a little more communication allowed than a normal game of touchy subjects. What was your strategy for that round? What did you do for round six?
Yeah, so okay, so as far as the point check goes, I had only ever considered using it one other time in the game, and it was going to be after the phrases challenge because I wanted to know if I could trust Patrick and Kane to keep my phrases secret and not tell the other guys. Because we had an arrangement that we would share with each other, but no one else. But this was all before the Gatekeepers chat appeared. So this was back when we had just been sending them one-on-one, and I was like, I don't know if I can trust these guys to keep it a secret. Um, so maybe I'll do a check after just to see where our trust level's at. But then after they created that chat, I felt like, what would be the point of them sharing mine? Like, whatever. So I didn't do the check, which I'm glad I didn't now because if I had done it then and I'd seen that my phrase had been shared based on the amount of points, I definitely would have blamed it on them and not Sloth, who very quickly revealed himself that he did share it. So I'm glad that I didn't. And I did do a point check here, but I didn't really know how much I was going to get out of it, just because I didn't know how many points I had at that point.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like an indication to me that I necessarily won or lost the last one. I think it was a little bit lower than I expected, just because Patrick had checked his during I think it was after the prisoner's dilemma challenge, and he had 10. And so I was like, okay, so if I had about the same, going off of that, then I've only gained 15 points in the last couple rounds. And of course, the points ramped up more and more every round.
Mhm.
So I felt like I should have more. So then I kind of did feel like I got stacked on the previous challenge. But then I thought maybe, okay, maybe I just got ranked lower than I expected. So, you know, regardless, I kind of felt like I didn't have a great amount of points. So I was like, all right, well, it is what it is. So I went in and I answered my first list, my private list for touchy subjects. And of course, I answered it honestly, as you do in that round. And I felt pretty good about my answers. And I felt like we're probably the group consensus. Of course, I want to think that because that is what you want in touchy subjects.
Mhm.
So I did that list, and then basically I did a little bit of chatting that night with the three people I had had conversations with. And in the end, Sloth was like, "Oh, do you want to share your list?" And I decided, no, I don't want to share my list actually. Um, and I just decided, you know what, like I know that we can talk a little bit more than you can in a typical touchy subjects, but I feel like I had, a decent outlook on the game. And again, I didn't really feel like I was in a winner's position anyways. So I was like, no, you know what? No one gets to know what I think. And I'm just going to answer this the way I want to answer it. So in the end, I didn't talk to anyone about how they answered. I did not tell anyone how I answered. And I answered my like quote unquote public list. I know it didn't actually be public, but my public list, more or less the same as my private list. I think I switched around a couple of things. But yeah, it was more or less the same. So not a whole lot of necessarily strategy. I just answered it honestly, and then I answered it how I thought the group would.
Yeah. So for the last few questions, anything else you want to add about the game as a whole or how you played as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, definitely going into it, we didn't know that much about it, of course.
Mhm.
That was by design. And yeah, going into it, I didn't really know what to expect. And I didn't also necessarily go in with this like I need to win mindset, like I have to win or I'm gonna die. Like some of the people in the game kind of seem like they felt. um, I definitely felt like Sloth and Noah had a drive to win that I just didn't have in this game,
Hmm.
which is fine because I think you need a good mix of people in the game. If you have, six people who are really, really driven to the end, it's not necessarily going to be entertaining. It just becomes toxic. Um, so yeah, going into it, I was very much like, you know what, like I'm here for the experience. I'm here to see what this new game is and how it works. And I'm like a lab rat, so that's fine. Yeah, so I just went into it like very chill. I didn't want it to be this big, crazy thing.
Mhm.
And I had fun. That's all I wanted out of the
Cool.
game. I just wanted it to be fun and a good experience.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Then, do you think you won? You kind of mentioned this earlier, but
no, I don't think I won. I don't think there was a time where I was ever leading in the game. No, is the answer.
all right. And who do you think did win then?
I think Patrick won.
You think Patrick?
I'm Yeah, I feel pretty good that he won. Not even because of his connections before the game. Like I'm not saying like, oh, he knew everyone, he had an advantage. But I just think that he continued conversations with people where other people like myself sort of gave up on them. I think that he kept people talking. He kept people generally close and generally comfortable. He's a nice person, easy person to talk to. I think that he's got good org experience. And of course, this is sort of a different game, so it's not like he intrinsically had any kind of advantage. But I think just having a lot of org experience is going to help you in orgs.
Yeah, yeah.
It helps you to talk to people and, sort of take challenges as they come and take the twists as they come. Yeah, so I feel pretty sure. I'm not gonna say pretty sure. I feel like 80% sure that Patrick won. That's my guess.
Hmm. Thank you for listening to Listen to Reality. Listen to Reality is owned and produced by Open Mic Podcasts. If you like Listen to Reality and want to see more episodes, or if you like Listen to Reality and want to see what else Open Mic Podcast has to offer, subscribe to Open Mic Podcasts on YouTube and follow Open Mic Podcasts on Spotify and Instagram. Come back 2 weeks from now for the next episode of Listen to Reality, but come back tomorrow for the first episode of Get the Word Across, the show where we covertly talk about television.